Our next question comes from Raitish from Sharjah. What are the chances of finding microbial life on Charon or Pluto, since we have the proof on Earth itself that life can evolve anywhere?
Well, we have life forming in extreme conditions on the Earth, but extreme on the Earth is pretty different than the kind of conditions we see on Pluto. And unfortunately, I think that the chances are pretty slim that there's life on Pluto. First of all, the temperatures of the surface is like minus 390 degrees Fahrenheit. So cold that, what could be moving, at those kinds of temperatures. The other thing is,
what if the smallest world on the edge of our solar system isn't just a frozen rock, but a place more mysterious than any planet we've ever studied? For decades, Pluto was dismissed, first crowned a planet, then stripped of its title, and finally left to fade into obscurity. But the truth is, Pluto has secrets that challenge everything we thought we knew about our cosmic neighborhood. So the real question is, why were we told to forget Pluto, when in reality, it might be the strangest world of them all? In 2006, astronomers made a decision that shocked the world. Pluto, the beloved ninth planet we all grew up learning about, was suddenly kicked out of the club. Overnight, textbooks were rewritten, teachers told kids to forget everything they had been taught, and Pluto's name was dragged through the cosmic mud. But here's what they didn't expect. People weren't so quick to let go. To the public, Pluto wasn't just another ball of ice. It was an underdog, a tiny world fighting to keep its identity while experts debated in crowded conference halls. And when Pluto was officially downgraded to a dwarf planet, it felt less like science and more like betrayal. Astronomers insisted it was just a matter of rules, that Pluto didn't meet the updated definition of what a planet should be. But outside of the science world, many people began to wonder, was this really about definitions? Or was there something more to the story? And as it turned out, Pluto wasn't about to stay quiet. Because in the very same year it was stripped of its title, a spacecraft was already on its way, ready to uncover shocking secrets that would rewrite everything we thought we knew. While scientists were busy debating Pluto's fate, something far more important was already in motion. In January of 2006, just months before the big demotion, NASA launched a spacecraft that would change everything. Its name was New Horizons, and it had one mission: to reach the edge of the solar system and give humanity its very first close-up look at Pluto. But this wasn't going to be easy. Pluto isn't just far, it's unimaginably far. To even stand a chance, NASA had to build one of the fastest spacecraft ever launched. They strapped New Horizons to an Atlas V rocket with 5 massive boosters, blasting it out of Earth's gravity well at a speed so great that it passed the moon in just 9 hours. For comparison, the Apollo missions took 3 days to cover that same distance. And still, even at that record-breaking pace, the journey would take nearly a decade. 9 long years of silence before a single photograph of Pluto could be sent back home. For many, the timing seemed poetic. Just as Pluto's planetary status was being erased, a lone probe was racing through the void, determined to uncover its truth. It was almost as if Pluto itself refused to be forgotten. And when New Horizons finally reached its target in 2015, what it saw would shock the world. Pluto wasn't the dull, lifeless rock that scientists expected. It was something far stranger. So why was Pluto really kicked out of the Planet Club? The official reason came down to a single change in definition. For decades, Pluto had passed the test. If it orbited the sun and wasn't a moon, that was good enough. But by 2006, astronomers decided they needed stricter rules. A real planet, they said, had to meet 3 requirements. First, it must orbit the sun. Second, it must be big enough for gravity to shape it into a sphere. Third, and most controversially, it must clear its neighborhood, sweeping away other objects around its orbit like a cosmic vacuum cleaner. Pluto nailed the first two. It orbits the sun, and it's perfectly round. But the third rule? That's where it failed. Pluto doesn't dominate its corner of the solar system. In fact, it shares space with countless icy objects in what we now call the Kuiper Belt. Instead of being the ruler of its region, Pluto was just one of many. To the scientific community, this was enough to strip it of planetary status. But to the public, the explanation felt cold and technical. After all, how could something that had been called a planet for 76 years suddenly not count anymore? It was like being told your childhood pet never existed. And yet, the irony was hard to ignore. By trying to demote Pluto, astronomers had actually drawn more attention to it. Because if Pluto wasn't a planet, then what was it? And what secrets was it hiding out there in the frozen darkness? Pluto isn't just small, it's strange. Unlike the 8 official planets which travel in neat, almost circular paths around the Sun, Pluto takes a wildly eccentric route. Its orbit is stretched into a long oval, tilted at a sharp angle, as if it decided to ignore the solar system's rules entirely. At times, this orbit actually carries Pluto closer to the Sun than Neptune, flipping the script and putting the 9th planet ahead of the 8th. And because the journey around the Sun takes 248 years, no human in history has ever seen Pluto complete a full orbit. Every snapshot we've taken of it has been just a tiny fraction of its long, rebellious path. But that's not all. Pluto doesn't wander alone. It's part of the Kuiper Belt, a vast ring of icy bodies, ancient leftovers from the birth of the solar system. Imagine it as a cosmic junkyard, filled with frozen worlds, comets, and debris that never formed into planets. Out there, Pluto isn't a king. It's just one of many strange and fascinating objects. And here's the twist. Pluto isn't even the biggest thing in the Kuiper Belt. It's simply the brightest, reflecting sunlight so well that it outshines its neighbors. That brightness fooled astronomers for decades into thinking Pluto was special, when in reality, it was hiding among an entire population of icy misfits. So, was Pluto really just another frozen rock, stripped of its title for good reason? Or was something about it still different, still worth fighting for? When New Horizons arrived in 2015, the answer became impossible to ignore. After nearly a decade of silent travel, New Horizons finally approached its target in July 2015. For 9 years, all anyone had seen of Pluto were fuzzy dots of light, blurry, distant specks that revealed almost nothing. Most scientists expected the probe to confirm what they already believed, that Pluto was just a dull, frozen wasteland barely worth the trip. But then, the first close-up photographs began to stream back to Earth, and they shocked everyone. Instead of a dead ice ball, Pluto revealed itself as a colorful, vibrant world. Swirls of deep red, pale blue, brilliant white, and burnt orange painted its surface like a cosmic canvas. And right at the center of it all was a feature that stunned the world, a giant pale heart, etched across Pluto's surface, big enough to cover an area the size of Texas. Half of this heart was smooth and unscarred, unlike anything scientists expected. Normally, frozen worlds are pockmarked with craters from billions of years of asteroid impacts, but Pluto's heart looked fresh, as if it had been erased and remade in recent times. That meant one thing: this tiny, distant world was alive with geological activity. For decades, Pluto had been dismissed as irrelevant, a cosmic leftover. But those first images told a different story. Something strange was happening on Pluto's surface, something no one had anticipated, and the closer New Horizons looked, the stranger it got. That pale heart on Pluto wasn't just beautiful, it was alive. When scientists zoomed in, they realized the smooth plains were made of frozen nitrogen, constantly reshaped by forces deep within the planet. Massive glaciers flowed slowly across the surface, carving patterns and erasing craters as if Pluto were quietly remaking itself. But the real surprise was what happened above the surface. Pluto, a world so small and so far from the Sun, somehow had an atmosphere. As sunlight hit its nitrogen ice, the surface didn't just crack or melt, it released vapor. The ice turned directly into gas, a process called sublimation, and that gas floated upward to form thin layers of haze and fog stretching high into space. Imagine standing there, frozen plains of nitrogen beneath your feet, faint mist curling into the sky, and an alien horizon glowing blue in the sunlight. It would feel less like standing on a dead rock and more like watching a world breathe. And this fragile atmosphere wasn't just for show. It actually changed with Pluto's orbit. When Pluto drifted closer to the Sun on its elongated path, the sublimation intensified, swelling its atmosphere to pressures greater than Mars. At times it might even become thick enough to allow rivers of liquid nitrogen to briefly flow across the surface. This was no lifeless relic. Against all odds, Pluto was dynamic, active, and evolving right before our eyes. And just when scientists thought it couldn't get stranger, New Horizons discovered something even more shocking. Pluto wasn't just breathing, it was erupting. As New Horizons mapped Pluto's rugged surface, one discovery stood out above all others: a colossal mountain, 5 kilometers tall and 150 kilometers wide, unlike anything scientists had ever seen. This was Right Mons. And it wasn't just a mountain, it was a volcano. But not the kind we know on Earth. Right Mons didn't spit out fire and molten rock. Instead, it erupted with a slushy mix of water, ammonia, and methane. A frozen slurry bursting from deep underground, a cryovolcano. And here's the chilling part. It wasn't some ancient relic. The lack of impact craters on its slopes suggested it was relatively young, meaning Pluto might still be volcanically active today. That raised an even bigger question: where was the heat coming from? Pluto is tiny, isolated, and freezing cold. By all logic, its interior should have gone silent billions of years ago. Yet something inside was still alive, still pushing material to the surface. The answer may lie beneath Pluto's icy crust. Evidence suggests a vast subsurface ocean. Liquid water locked beneath kilometers of frozen shell, warmed by residual heat and perhaps the gravitational tug-of-war with its giant moon, Charon. Think about that. A hidden ocean, sealed under the ice of a dwarf planet at the edge of the solar system. Not only would that explain Pluto's active geology, but it also hints at something far more profound: the possibility that even in the coldest corners of space, worlds might harbor the conditions for life. And if Pluto itself wasn't strange enough, its relationship with Charon made the story even more bizarre. If Pluto is strange on its own, its relationship with Charon takes the mystery to another level. Charon is massive, almost half the size of Pluto itself. In fact, the two are so close in size that they don't behave like a typical planet and moon. Instead of Pluto being the clear master, both worlds orbit around a shared center of gravity floating in the empty space between them. It's less like a planet with a moon and more like a binary system. Two worlds locked in an endless dance. What makes this even weirder is the tidal locking. Just like our moon always shows the same face to Earth, Charon always shows the same face to Pluto. But here's the twist. Pluto does the same. From one side of Pluto, you'd see Charon fixed in the sky, never moving. From the other side, you'd never see it at all. Imagine living on a world where the same moon either dominates your sky forever or never rises at all. How did this bizarre relationship form? The leading theory is that billions of years ago, Pluto and Charon collided in a catastrophic smash. But instead of destroying each other, they became bound together. Two broken pieces caught in an eternal embrace. That collision may have even sparked Pluto's internal heat, keeping its underground ocean alive long after other small worlds froze solid. Even a stranger, Charon shows signs of sharing in Pluto's story. Its surface is scarred with cracks and canyons, suggesting its own history of tectonic activity. And some scientists believe red deposits on Charon's North Pole are fallout from Pluto's eruptions. material blasted into space and raining down on its partner. It's as if these two worlds are locked not just in orbit, but in destiny, shaping each other's past, present, and future. But Pluto and Charon's strange partnership isn't the end of the story, because after New Horizons revealed their secrets, the mission had one final twist, an ending no one expected. After its breathtaking flyby, New Horizons didn't stop. It raced past Pluto in just a matter of days, continuing its journey deeper into the Kuiper Belt, uncharted territory filled with frozen worlds we've barely begun to understand. For the first time in history, a spacecraft was sailing through this cosmic graveyard, snapping images of objects billions of kilometers from Earth. But here's the bittersweet truth. For all the stunning discoveries at Pluto, there are no current plans to send another mission back. NASA has shifted its focus to closer worlds like Mars, Europa, and Titan. That means the photos New Horizons sent in 2015 might be the only close-up views of Pluto we'll see in our lifetime. It's almost cruel in a way. Just when Pluto revealed itself to be so much more than we imagined, alive, active, and mysterious, we had to leave it behind. The underdog planet that was written off as irrelevant turned out to be one of the most fascinating worlds in the solar system. And maybe that's what makes Pluto so captivating. It's not about whether it's officially a planet or not. It's about what it represents. The idea that the universe still has surprises waiting in the most unexpected places. So the next time you look up at the night sky and think about Pluto, remember this. Sometimes the smallest, most overlooked worlds hold the biggest mysteries, and maybe, just maybe one day, we'll return to finish the story New Horizons began.